Have you ever felt like you're just doing all the right things, but something still feels off? Today's guest, Agnieszka, knows that feeling all too well. She's a psychology professor, therapist, and workplace wellbeing strategist who spent years running on autopilot until she made one powerful shift, putting her well-being at the center of every single decision. That choice didn't slow her down. In fact, it gave her more clarity. Since then, Agnieszka has built a thriving therapy practice, became a professor, and now teaches people and companies how to spot avoidance, prevent burnout, and build lives that actually work for them. This episode is a must listen if you've been questioning the pace you're living at and wondering what might be possible if you finally gave yourself permission to slow down and realign. A big thank you to Avery for sponsoring this episode. Agnieszka, thank you so much for coming by on Realistic Happiness.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here.
If I was tuning in, what can I learn from you today?
I would say two things. First, that the most important thing that you can do for yourself is to place your well being at the top of your priority list and make all of your decisions from there because it makes everything you do sustainable. And the second would be to pay attention to avoidance because I have been working as a therapist and trainer and educator for some time, and avoidance is one of the biggest barriers that people have to feeling happy. They avoid the things that scare them, and this puts them in trouble. So
I
these two
can
things.
I can deeply relate, and I want to talk about putting well-being first then. So many of us worry if we put well-being first that it means sacrificing our career or our success. Can you tell me why that's wrong?
Yeah, of course. So this is something that I find in my own story and also in the stories of my clients. So let me start with the clients. When I first introduced this idea, put your well-being first in therapy processes, the first reaction that I get is that my clients get scared because they think, oh, if I put my well-being first, the only thing I will be doing is I'm going to be watching Netflix, drinking beer on the couch, and this is what they are afraid of. They are afraid of this because they are used to being so motivated by negative motivation and inner criticism that they think that if they drop it, they will not know how to navigate their lives. Where in fact, there is a period of switching from the negative motivation to the positive one. But once you nurture that positive motivation, it can help you really grow. So you're starting to look for things that are motivating you in the right direction. It's your direction and not the direction imposed by your upbringing, culture, and so on. And this also links back to my story that I have made that switch 5 years ago. So from being, I would say, on autopilot to putting my well-being first a couple of years ago, I think 5. And from that moment, I have experienced growth in my career, my life. I moved to the Netherlands. I got awarded the title of professor at my university. I published a couple of research articles. I opened my own therapy practice here in Amsterdam, and it's thriving. And now I'm expanding my business into workplace well-being. And this all comes from the fact that I have put my well-being first, and all of my decisions come from that, which makes me not waste time on unsustainable actions. So this is how it works. No worries there.
So you mentioned about having driving factors that are negative
Yeah.
and then positive.
Yeah.
I absolutely relate to the negative when you're trying to run away from, oh, I don't want to have that lifestyle. I don't want to be like them, or I don't want to be like my
Yeah.
past self. I want to be as far away as possible. I can't imagine having a positive motivation. Can you talk to us more about how to kind of switch that from a
Yeah.
negative to positive?
So one of the elements that can really help you is to look at your values and what is it that you find meaningful in life. Things like kindness, care, maybe success and achievements are your values. That's also okay. Or maybe you want to have a nice car or a walk-in closet. That's also okay, as long as you are honest with yourself about what's your value and you look for that kind of motivation that is attached not only to your emotions, because emotions change, but to your values, and they are more or less stable. Then this can help you navigate your life in the direction that you want. I also like to think about my life. If I'm looking for my positive motivation, I like to think about my life or my future dream life in terms of the lifestyle that I want to have, how much I would like to be working, how much I would like to be making also, who are the people I would like to be surrounded by. So these kind of questions that can give me a clear vision of where is it that I am going, not what I'm going, running away from, but what is my direction.
And that's the avoidance you mentioned earlier, right?
The avoidance is a little bit different because avoidance can be tricky. Anxiety can be tricky because we organize our lives in a way to avoid the things that scare us, right? So it's kind of like everybody has a blind spot. And I used to be a person like that I would avoid making mistakes or failing because it terrified me. And the consequence of that was that my life was very limited because I kept myself in my safety zone, right? So I would say that avoidance is a like the blind spots that we have that are we don't even know sometimes what we are running away from. So there's a bit of work to be done in self-reflection and increasing your own self-awareness towards your blind spots. I would say this one is complicated.
It
Yeah.
is. And a blind spot, perhaps I have something I've been reflecting on recently with this well-being journey and implementing exercise and healthy eating and taking lion's mane supplements, for example, is that I think I'm procrastinating. I think I'm avoiding work, even though I am a self-proclaimed workaholic. I think having such a beautiful morning routine where I just, go to the gym an hour and a half, then I go for a walk, and then I get sunlight, and then I do meditation. Then I start work at 10 a.m. And I think this is my dream, right?
Mhm.
I work for myself and I start at 10 a.m. But then, oh, it's nearly lunchtime. Oh, and then I'm really pushing the thing I'm avoiding, right? Which sounds really dumb, but could you explain to me perhaps, because I'm sure other people relate to this as well, when you put well-being first like this, it's a form of procrastination and pushing
Yeah.
something you're uncomfortable with.
So my question to you would be, does it make you happier if you procrastinate or does it make you less happy? My bet is less, right? Because you're stressed as you're taking care of your well-being, you're stressed, right? So it doesn't actually move things forward. So what you want to do is, for example, I work with a journal. I have a journal where I have a journal entry every day. And one of the exercises that is there, and I'm a vegetarian, but there is an exercise that is called Swallow the Frog, where you where you start your day with the thing that you know scares you. And when you were telling me your story right now about your day, there is an implication in what you're saying that you know deep down whether you're procrastinating or not. 90% of the time people know.
Yeah.
Would you say that this is true, that you know when you're procrastinating because in the background there is this scary thing that you don't want to address? Maybe it seems stressful, or maybe there is an outcome that you are uncertain of, and that's so usually we know when we are procrastinating.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely do. Especially at the gym, I find it really difficult to enjoy it because I am enjoying it because of the endorphins, right? The dopamine, sorry, just like lifting weights and like lifting higher. And yeah, I can do it now. But it always in the back of my head, even if I'm listening to my favorite song, even if I'm drowning it with a podcast, right? There's just that deep thought within myself. And thank you so much for acknowledging it as well. Just saying, like, oh, today is, yeah, I need to like get back on the grind and I need to do this. And like, I kind of have like a to-do list. And I kind of think, oh, but well-being, like I need to be at the gym,
Yeah.
so that can wait till later. So I am,
Yeah.
yeah, pushing it
So
back.
there is something that, and of course, I struggle with it myself, right? So I find myself constantly kind of readjusting and reevaluating, are the things that I'm doing, is this procrastination or is this actually moving my life in the direction that I want? So in psychology, we have, for example, this division into behaviors that are the actual thing and behaviors that are supposed to help you decrease your tension. So when you have a procrastination behavior or a procrastination tendency, you can look at your behaviors and decide whether whether a behavior qualifies as something that is the actual thing, or does it is its function only to decrease your anxiety. And I find myself very often in behaviors that I realize only after a couple of days of doing them. Oh, Jesus, right now I'm actually just trying to decrease my tension, but the actual thing is the thing in the back of my head that scares me. So, yeah.
But what about if you're doing the right thing? So for me, when I am at the gym, I'm thinking I need to, yeah, look after myself because I want to be strong in the future. I don't want to be like a frail old lady. Yeah, it's good for my mindset as well to not be working all the time, like to be away from my desk and do something that's completely different, which is exercise. And then also for maybe shallow reasons, like I want to look good for an event or keep up appearance, right? So I know I want to do it. I am pushing myself to do it because it's good for me. But at the same time, it is a bad correlation, right? Because it's directly tied to avoidance.
So you're saying you're avoiding going to the gym and this is unpleasant for you?
Um, I guess now reflecting about it, yeah, I avoid to go to the gym in order to do work, but that's my stressor. But then when I go to the gym, I can't enjoy it because I am avoiding work. So it's a horrendous loop
Yeah,
I
it
live
is.
in every single day.
Yeah. So I would say it's always a question of balance, right? And I find myself doing the same. One week I prioritize work and I'm going to I put it in my journal where I say, okay, this week is focus on writing because I'm writing a book right now. So I'm telling myself this week is going to be only about writing, or my priority is writing. And then after a week I look at my schedule for the past week and I think, okay, where did my exercise routine go? If I prioritize writing, my exercise routine goes out the window. So then for the next week, I prioritize exercise. And then I'm thinking, the week after, where did writing go? So I think it's a back and forth for everybody. I'm a therapist. I've been doing my work for 10 years, researching happiness for 20, and I still struggle with the same thing. So I would say that there is in happiness, it's never a destination only. You're never perfectly happy and you're never perfectly well. It's always about the practice of paying attention of where are the deficits in my routines right now. What is there that's too much? What is there that's not enough? And then adjusting that. But it's a continuous thing.
Yeah, and you said earlier as well that you've been doing this for 10 years, 16 years, but you're diverting more towards, instead of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and being a professor, to workplace.
Yes.
Why the transition?
The transition mostly is because I work with a lot of clients who had a burnout and a lot of clients who struggle with workplace stress. And my challenge is that I talk to them when they are already suffering. And I can only, in one-on-one sessions, I can only have an impact on repairing the damage for one person. Whereas when I take a look at how workplaces are designed and how work is designed, I think there is a lot of impact with my background and knowledge that I can have on workplaces and on the preventative side. Because to be honest, I would prefer much more to prevent than to cure something that's already happened. Because especially with burnout, if you have a person, usually 100% of people who have a burnout, they care about their jobs. People who don't care, they don't burn out simply because they are not stressed about their jobs. So you can imagine how difficult it is of an experience for a person who really cares about doing their job well, and then they end up in a burnout and have to stop working and their career stops for a year, 2 years. So that's quite a big consequence, I would say.
Yeah. And so on the flip side from what I asked you earlier about people putting well-being first, companies feel the same, right? If they put well-being first, and it can cause like disruptions in the business, right? If they just focus too much on employees being happy versus, are we getting results? Are we having profit record years? We just need output, right?
Yeah.
So we have like the two conflicting
So
scenarios.
in my opinion, it's not conflicting at all. Happy people are unstoppable. So if you're representing a company and you take care of the well-being of your people, this is going to translate into better business outcomes. And there are a lot of studies done by McKinsey Institute, Oxford University, that link revenues to employee well-being. So, for example, if you were looking to invest in stocks and stock market, the best decision you could make is to take a look at an employee well-being service, and this will, if you invest in the happiest companies, it will give you the best return on investment. So, for example, right now, what I am offering to companies in terms of workshops on employee well-being for managers, for example, my goal is not pure ideology. I'm not doing my thing because I want to help people only. I think if that was my only motivation coming from the heart, and it is there, but well, let's just ignore it for a moment. If I was just doing this for these emotional reasons, I don't think I would be able to cooperate with big business, because big business, the aim of a company is to have positive business outcomes, which means revenues. So I'm looking for win-win situations in which companies see that if they invest in employee well-being correctly, this will translate into better employee well-being, and this will translate into better business outcomes. But you have to know how to do it in order to reach those, in order to be effective in it.
Yeah, data-driven wellness,
Yeah.
I think, is kind of the middle ground, the answer, because yeah, I mean, employees seem to want a completely different thing to what corporates want, right? It's like we're not speaking the same language at all. Corporates want success, yeah, profit record years. They want to be going viral as well. They want to be well known and successful and the number one. Versus employees are like, I just want to take PTO. I just want to take a holiday and not feel guilty for it. And I just want to work 4 days, 3 days a week and not devote my entire life to work, right? So actually having middle people like you, like me, who actually educate companies and talk to the companies instead, the root cause, right, of the problems. Because like you said, I see this time and time again. Like you said, Harvard studies, McKinsey, Gallup says it all the time that happy employees equal great business,
Exactly.
thriving teams. And it's such a shame to see that there's this, we're just not talking the same language. We're just, yeah, there's such a disconnect. And then especially with Meta, for example, I saw all of their DEI initiatives. It was like last year, just their statement saying, "Oh, we thrive on it, and like this is going to be our best year because we're so diverse and we have such different minds." And they've completely changed their mind within 12 months, and they're saying, "Oh, it causes more hassle than it's worth. We've completely stopped it." And that's not what we were ever asking for.
No, but with this topic, I worry that there is like a political thing behind the scenes that I don't really maybe understand so well why those decisions are being made, because I do actually, well, I know, and as you're saying, all of those studies prove it, that happy people basically work better. So why the sudden change? It must be something shady, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just the legal
Yeah.
boundaries and situations. And also, it's so funny that companies like Meta are now saying, oh, people are too entitled. They've become too soft. They want too much.
Yeah, but that's lazy leadership, I would say. If you want to have power over your people and basically tell them what to do without paying attention to what your people are saying back to you, then that's lazy leadership. I made a promise to myself also when I started this business with workplace well-being, that I am not going to work with toxic companies. Because can you imagine, for example, if I had someone who comes to me to therapy and they are being in an abusive relationship, I would not help that person to manage better that relationship. I would tell them to leave, right? So this is the same thing that goes for companies. There are companies that are toxic, and the situations that you're describing right now, they seem toxic. I don't know if you would agree, but it's not very healthy. So companies like that who have an idea of fast revenues at the cost of people, then that's not my client, right? But I believe that for the majority, I'm optimistic maybe, but the majority of companies would benefit from well-being initiatives that actually work only they are missing the know-how. And I also know, so there's a great opportunity here for everybody to benefit if these well-being initiatives are done correctly. My worry is that in the past, there were a lot of well-being initiatives that weren't delivered effectively. For example, resilience training is correlated with decreasing employee well-being because it's done incorrectly. If somebody who is delivering a training on resilience doesn't understand the mechanics of it, it's very easy to deliver a training on resilience and cause people to ignore their fatigue and teach them to power through. So this in turn will translate into poorer well-being. So I think that in the past, a lot of well-being initiatives were done incorrectly without the proper understanding of the underlying mechanics of it. And now the consequence is that decision makers are cutting budgets on well-being because they don't see the return on investment.
Yes, absolutely. And I just want to touch on as well what you said about the individual. So like you said about if someone was coming to you for therapy, if they were being abused, like what kind of advice would you give? So I find that we feel guilty for taking a break or slowing down or working at our own rhythm, our own pace. And sometimes that's not just the work itself, but how we've been brought up. For example, I have friends from New York, from Poland, who are, this is ingrained in them essentially. How can we, if the company is not willing to change, for example, and you were to help the individuals, how can we change something that's so deeply ingrained in us, like overworking?
Yeah, so I think you're talking about two things that can get entangled: guilt and fear. Maybe from my own experience, the reason why I never had a burnout, I think the reason why I never had a burnout was that I always had more than one source of income. So I always had like a side hustle or some additional source of income that I can fall back on in case my employer starts pushing me too much. And that allowed me to have a bit more power in the relationship with my employer. And this also, because I'm not sure if you're talking about guilt or are you talking about fear? Because I can imagine that if I had just one job and just one source of income, and my employer would be pushing me to work harder, I would be scared that if I say no, then I will get in trouble. So I would make myself feel guilty in order to keep myself in the dynamic, because guilt is it's with emotions you have layers. So you can I'm saying sorry to the microphone now. That's okay. So with emotions you have these layers. So what you're experiencing, that's a question whether it's actually guilt or is the guilt covering up the fear of being fired, for example. So these layers, I would say.
Yeah, I think it does stem. I think it is fear of the unknown, of being fired.
Yeah, yeah. And then if you're afraid of being fired, if you identify that the actual underlying emotion is fear, then you can ask yourself a question, not how do I feel less guilty, but how do I make myself less scared? So then you're actually addressing the root cause of the issue and not only the surface level.
So just to kind of reiterate, instead of expecting stability from something you cannot control, which is your boss or your work, you create your own stability in order to avoid burnout and fear.
Yes, by taking agency, because I think that the stability of employment these days, it's a fake concept. You can see in a lot of companies in tech right now, for example, here in Amsterdam, there are a lot of restructuring processes going on, and people, even though they thought that their job is stable, they are working in successful businesses, they are being let go. So where's that stability, right? So I would say having many options is always like, that's been my strategy for work, and that's why I feel like I'm quite okay in terms of how I feel.
I have a very similar story around that because I remember my first ever recruitment job. I worked at Oak Furnitureland, which is a furniture shop, and I gave that company 150% of my energy. I was going there 5 times a week to the office. My favorite job was on site. Can you believe that? And I absolutely loved it. I loved my team. My boss was everything. Shout out to Mercedes. She watches these episodes. She was just one of the best bosses I've ever had. Yeah, I gave my all to that job. I would hop in a car and go to one of the locations if they needed me there. Like I really, really went above and beyond. And then I think it was half a year later, I got laid off.
Yeah.
And it just proved to me so early in my career that you can be the best. You can pour your heart and your soul into a company. You can be the best performer. You can be the most sought after person. Recruitment was like, I remember in COVID, it was just as sought after as software developers. Like it goes in waves, like tech people are in demand and then it goes down. Like this is what you meant about job security. And yeah, that was a really big realization for me very early in my career that, yeah, damn, you can be replaced like this.
Yeah, yeah. I think I used to be maybe more naive in the past, but right now I realize that I'm a pragmatic. So I know that the core goal of any business is to survive and to profit, right? So the moment you as an employee are not profitable for a company, you will be let go. That's the tough reality of it. And I think it causes a lot of problems when people believe in this being a non-transactional relationship at work. And of course, we have relationships at work that are non-transactional. Relationships with colleagues, as you're saying, you have a relationship with your previous manager that's still ongoing, right? So the human connection that is there, that's important and that's non-transactional. But the relationship of a person with the business, that's transactional. And it's always going to be like this.
Talking about stability, because I like for the audience to like walk away with some actionable advice. As you know, I'm doing the podcast, I'm doing side hustles and stuff. How can you do that without going crazy? Because I can imagine, especially with me when I had 9 to 5 plus working weekends and stuff. Yes, it was giving me a lot of energy. It gave me stability because it was an exit plan if anything was to happen with my 9 to 5 or the industry I'm in. But I was living to work. I was working all the time. So for someone who's a bit skeptic with this, how can you do a side hustle that gives you stability if your 9 to 5 was to go to shit, but not lose my sanity?
Yeah. So I think the key here is to strategize about what you are putting your energy into and make sure that the things that you, for example, if you're on a payroll and you're looking to free up some energy, and not because I'm not advocating overworking, right? This is a side hustle that you need to do it well. But my advice would be that if you're working, you need to think what are the priorities, not what are the most visible aspects of your job for your employer, and focus on those priorities, right? Because if you have a perfectionistic tendency, you will try to do your job at 100%, always, regardless of the circumstances. I think it, especially in bigger organizations, you need to really think what is the most visible and most important element of what you're doing for your employer, and focus on that, and just lower your standards on the rest. Because if you're trying to be 100% in everything, you are going to burn out.
You only have finite energy.
Exactly. Yeah. There is a calculation that I have seen in a study in the past that says that if you work at your 100%, you are probably going to burn out, that the optimal level of engagement is about 80%. So you always need a 20% buffer for the unexpected, or, not feeling so great and being able to slow down. But these same studies show that people often feel that if they lower their the energy that they put into working to 30%, they can still get away with that for longer periods of time. So I think you, the listener, need to ask, and you also and me, we need to ask ourselves, like, how much energy do I really want to put into my work? Because I work with a lot of professionals who are advancing in their careers. They are not overworking themselves. I think modern companies also see the value in people being able to say no, and people who are able to state boundaries within the workplace are also valued employees. So I would advocate to learn stating boundaries at the workplace well, gradually, not from day to day switching from saying yes to everything to then saying no to everything, but gradually learning how to say no, how to state your boundaries at your workplace.
A really interesting thing I learned about that for these people that are a bit nervous to start setting boundaries is to delay saying yes.
Yes,
So
exactly.
if your boss says, "Oh, Agnieszka, have you got any more time to do this? I need this by tomorrow."
Let me think about it. I'm not so sure, right? That would be
Yeah.
the first. Yes, exactly. If you want to learn to say no, the first step would be to start saying yes later, reluctantly, and maybe not so eagerly. Because if you're always saying yes, then everybody around you thinks, "Oh, she has an unlimited source of energy. Apparently, we can dump more." Stuff on her, right? We don't want to do that, right? So you don't want to end up being that person. But also at workplaces, at your work, it's not a good idea to switch too abruptly from saying yes to saying no, because this will in turn trigger resistance to change in other people. So they will be surprised by the new strategy. So that's also not good because you want to be seen as a consistent person.
Yeah. So it's about gradual delaying and saying no. But also another way is to put it into perspective how much you're doing already. So like delaying saying no and saying, "Oh, I'm already doing quite a lot. Shall I swap out the project I'm currently doing for what you're asking?"
Yeah.
So kind of
Yeah.
giving
Yeah.
suggestions.
Giving suggestions, and also I would say reframing. If you have a problem with saying no, I would say reframing your role in the company, because if you see your role as that you are hired and you're valued for your ability to take on a lot and for your diligence, then that puts you in a very compliant position, right?
Yeah.
But if you reframe it and if you think about yourself, I am a professional, and part of my professionalism is to be able to communicate to my employer, hey, you are now burdening me and the team too much. We need to slow down because the team is going to fall apart and I'm going to go on a burnout leave soon, or leave in general. If we continue like this, then it's your professional responsibility also to communicate to your employer or your manager, hey, we're doing maybe too much too fast right now. So if you make that mental switch, it puts you more in a partnership position with your manager, employer, and then you can have a conversation that is more on one level.
So you mentioned the 80/20 study, and there was also another study by the Workforce Institute that found that I found this so interesting, that 69% of employees report that their manager impacts their health as much as their spouse or their partner. So it just shows you that a functioning, a good relationship with your manager is essential in order to
Absolutely.
feel good at work. So like you were just saying now, putting boundaries, talking to your manager, it sounds good in theory, but a lot of us, including me, I found it really awkward to like stand my ground and ask for things, especially when it came to like well-being, without sounding weak, without sounding like I was a burden to the team or the business, or I was gonna do something like call off sick, etc., and like impact the team. So how do you manage that relationship with your manager to like manage your mental health, but also speak professionally in
Yeah.
a sense?
So now you got me excited with this question.
I know you want to know the next bit, but just give me one moment. If you're not hiring right now, though, skip the next 60 seconds. This guy won't be offended. I've spent enough time in recruitment to know the pain points firsthand. The endless LinkedIn tabs, the where did I put that CV from last month moments, the awkward team meetings where everyone has a different idea of what we're hiring for. That's why when I first heard about Avery, I had that rare, finally, someone gets it feeling. What I appreciate the most, it actually connects all the places candidates already exist, pulling from LinkedIn, Indeed, plus digging through your existing database to find people you've already talked to. You know, the ones who slipped through the cracks when timing wasn't quite right. The real game changer for me was seeing actual market data before posting a job. Turns out my salary expectations were way off my last hire. Would have been nice to know that before spending weeks interviewing people I couldn't afford. Look, I'm not going to pretend hiring will ever be completely painless, but having everything in one place with real insights instead of guesswork, that's worth talking about. There's a link below for a free month if you're in the middle of hiring hell right now. If not, just file this away from when you inevitably are. Now, back to what we were discussing.
So now you got me excited with this question. I think the reason behind this feeling of awkwardness when talking about your well-being, I think you hit the nail on the head here, that it's awkward and it makes you feel weak somehow, that if you're talking about your own needs and your own well-being. So I think culturally we are programmed to treat this as a weakness. So, in order to kind of give people the tools to communicate about well-being without feeling this way, what I am trying to do with my way of working is I'm trying to break well-being down into 7 psychological skills because it makes communication easier. So imagine that right now you're starting to feel not so great. You don't know how to communicate that to your manager. This feeling of am I weak kicks in and it gets awkward because you're not feeling great in general. So instead of this conversation, a very vague one, what I am giving people through my trainings is I am teaching them to identify, okay, if I'm not feeling so great, what is actually my issue right now? Are things changing around me too fast and my change resilience is not keeping up? Am I criticizing myself in my head because I've made a mistake and now this is giving me stress? So talking about positive self-talk, for example. Am I feeling uncertain in how I'm doing? Do I need to ask for feedback or recognition from my manager? So or maybe my motivation went out the window because something changed in the benefits structure and bonuses and stuff like that, because this is a very delicate mechanism. So if you break well-being down into specific skills, it is easier to communicate because it's more concrete. Instead of saying, hey, I'm not feeling so great, you can have a conversation with your manager saying, you know what, I need more feedback on this, this, and this, and I need more recognition for my efforts, because if I get that, it will decrease my stress levels and I can keep on working. If I feel uncertain about how I'm doing, this is an this is an incredible stressor, uncertainty. So this is what I'm trying to do, to break it down into 7 parts, and then it makes it easy to communicate.
So essentially, yeah, just breaking it down to 7 parts. So it makes it, instead of an emotional conversation with your manager, because they can go very wrong. I've done that before where I've been very spontaneous and abrupt, I guess, with my manager. And then the conversation just doesn't go well because it's more emotional instead of like return on business, like what does that mean for the team, etc. Just approaching it with the 7 steps, like you said, in a logical way.
Yeah. And I also believe that, you know, in order to have those conversations with your with managers, in general, managers also need to be trained in these well-being skills, and they also need to understand, because I can go to my manager and start talking about my need for recognition and feedback, but if that manager is not trained in this specific aspect of well-being, well, then that person is not a good partner for a conversation like that. So and what I'm doing with my business model right now, I'm insisting on not only training employees, because studies show that individual interventions targeted only for employees, they do not work. It needs to be an all-encompassing thing for companies. So I'm kind of trying to put pressure on employers also to train managers so that an employee can have a partner in their manager regarding those difficult well-being conversations.
Exactly, especially if they are, if managers are 69% of your emotional well-being, same as your
Absolutely.
spouse. I find that I'm also trying to tackle this with the workshops as well. I find that if you do single out just the leaders and say, hey, you know, in a nice way, you're doing something wrong. It's your leadership style. This is how you can be more. This is how you can lead with empathy. This is how you can listen better. Because we know that's the core issue. Essentially, the data says it. We know it as well. But I find that there's a lot of stubbornness. You know, leaders are firefighting every day. They are busy with meetings upon meetings upon meetings. So they find that, oh, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm in this position in the first place. And oh, there's another thing I have to do now. So this is why I'm trying to tackle it in this way as well, the workshops, like to have them all together. So not doing it as 2 separate things, like leaders versus employees. Because like you said about employees, when it's targeted at just them, they show up and they're like, bullshit.
Mhm.
Like it's our boss, like it's the CEO, right? It's the vision, it's not me. And B, oh, another wellness thing. Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. Another dance on how we need to do mindfulness and breath work and stuff like that. Like we just want to take our holidays. We just want
Yeah.
to work part-time, you know? So I find that like having a workshop where it's like kind of blended really, really works because yeah, there's like the stubbornness from leadership. They don't have time to even do this. And then, like you said, just targeting employees, there's that kind
Yeah.
of issue.
So your idea, the way that you conduct your workshops is that you put managers and their teams together?
I think they have to be leveled out.
Okay, so my idea is different, but it's great to have diversity on the
Of
market,
course.
right?
Yeah.
So mine is that I do program trainings in a way that is for managers only. So it's a more of a deeper dive for managers, and this is a separate training for a group of managers. But what I am stressing is that at the same time, you also need to, in a different kind of cohort, in a different program, you need to also train employees. So the reason behind it, why I'm not blending, I'm not merging managers and team members in one group, is that in those dynamics, I have found that people are not so willing to address the issues so openly. So that's a big challenge, right? Because if you're in one group in a training together with your manager, you may be a bit scared of opening up. So yeah, that's a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been looking into relentlessly, like not just icebreakers because they don't really do anything really, just more about how to let loose and open
Yeah,
up and have a psychologically safe
yeah,
space for everyone to talk because you also have people who have a vendetta and like, oh, I can, well, if I go to this workshop I can use
yeah.
this information against people and stuff, but that's a completely separate topic. But I just wanted to kind of go more towards the employee side. So like you said before, you have that conversation with your boss, and if your boss isn't empathetic or a good listener or not understanding where you're coming from, is there a way that I can like mindset shift, like I can adjust or overcome that situation? Because I can
Yeah.
find it really, if I do address it and I get brave enough, like, okay, the 7 steps, like I'm gonna speak to them, and then they reject
Yeah.
or they don't even listen, how do I then move on from that?
You don't move on, you move more in the same direction, right? Because what I think is happening usually is that people expect that once they address something, they will get the results. Whereas people also, including managers, I mean, we're talking about managers as if it's some different species, but they are also employees, right? But what I think needs to happen is you need to sit and have that conversation, and then take a moment and assess what is the result. If the result is not what you wanted, sit down and have that conversation again without feeling offended for the fact that it didn't work in the first place. Because people need time also to adjust to new content at work. And I think it's persistence and kind of feeling that every time you address your needs, every time you have a conversation about your needs at work, you are doing two things at the same time. One is you're looking for the effect. So you're looking for your workplace manager to give you what you need. That's one thing. But with every moment you communicate about your needs, you are also self-validating those needs. And that in itself increases well-being. So every time you say, okay, it didn't work the first time, I'm going to sit down and have that conversation with my manager again, and then again, and then again. At some point, it will probably yield some results. Maybe not the first one, not at the first go.
Yeah, repetition
Yeah,
is super
yeah,
important.
yeah. But imagine how convinced you need to be of your own needs and their validity in order to do that, because you cannot have a situation where you think my needs are important. I'm gonna voice them, and if reality doesn't answer, I devaluate my needs. I don't know. Yeah, that can happen. So you need to be really grounded in the fact that your needs are important, and even if the reality doesn't answer in the way that you like, you need to be grounded in the fact and say to yourself, yeah, okay, I did not get what I want, but my needs are still valid, and I can repeat and repeat and repeat again what my needs are.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, it's a really difficult conversation to have, but like you said, once you affirm to yourself, right? Like I am human, I'm
Yeah,
clearly having problems, and they
yeah,
keep raising up.
yeah.
I need to talk about it. And I also want to talk to you about friendships in
Mhm.
the workplace, because there's the famous Harvard study where they measured happiness in the workplace, and what measured nearer to the top was having friends, because you spend how many hours was it? 90,000 hours, or a third of your life, just as much
Yeah,
as you do with sleep,
yeah,
working. So it's really, they notice it's really important having at least one friend at
absolutely.
work. But like with the manager situation, like with the workshops and people having vendettas, etc., there's politics, there's competition, there's uncertainty, right? Like, oh, layoffs, maybe if
Mhm.
I tell my friend I'm struggling, they're going to use that against me. So how do you, like, first, is it possible to have friends in the workplace? And second of all, how can you protect yourself whilst having friends in the workplace?
Well, absolutely, you can have friends, and I've been working at one university for 16 years now, and one of the greatest assets that this university has is the people that I've been working with, and they are my friends, and we've been friends for a long time. So, and it really makes a difference for yeah, how you feel at work. So I think it's absolutely possible. I think what is happening right now and the challenge right now is that a lot of people have switched to online with its perks, of course, that we're saving time on commuting, and we can I can be in my leggings all day if I want to. So these are the benefits of it. But the downside is that a lot of people, especially since the pandemic, are feeling very lonely at work. So I would say, going back to your question, how do you protect yourself? I would say it's important to take that risk, even though there are potential risks, as in you are exposed. If you're vulnerable with your colleagues, you are exposing yourself to those risks. And well, I don't want to use the word vendettas. I hope that's not so common, but uh, I think it's absolutely worth it for your well-being if you take a risk and try and form more genuine, deeper connections with your colleagues. And through the workshops that I am giving to companies, what I am trying to do, it's like a side effect of the workshop, that if I put teams in one place for a discussion on their well-being, what happens is that people start seeing that everybody has the same challenges and everybody has the same problems, and we don't have to fight and compete against each other in the workplace. We can cooperate. And in general, I would say that the best companies, the ones who are also most successful, are the ones who stress cooperation between employees and not competition. So if somebody feels threatened by the fact that they could, or in danger somehow, unsafe in forming friendships at work, I would ask myself, where are you working? What is the vibe of the company?
It's the survival mechanism, isn't
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
in the workplace?
Yeah. If you feel in danger, if you feel unsafe, that's gigantic pressure that is on you. Yeah.
It has such a huge impact in your well-being, and we are social creatures. Whether you are working remotely, whether you say you're an introvert, we are social by nature.
Absolutely. There is even an interesting study that shows that if you have these tiny interactions with people, like talking to your barista, talking to, I don't know, the shop assistant where you buying groceries, if you have and put a little bit of extra effort into having those little interactions with people, it can significantly improve your well-being. So it doesn't necessarily need to be necessarily need to be these in-depth conversations. Even those tiny things that they make a difference. And I was giving a workshop last week, and the online team mentioned that because they are working remotely, they are working online, they miss it quite significantly. They miss the water cooler conversations and the conversations you have in the elevator while going to the office. That this significantly contributes to how they feel. So I would say that's, well, it is important.
And there's so many studies running now. I think it was the University of Ghent did the study as well. Quite a lot of universities and Harvard, etc., are looking into 4-day work weeks versus on-site versus fully remote. And it just looks like that they all have their perks, that there is an issue with long commutes, working unnecessarily long hours or overtime. Like those are the issues, or systemic issues like politics, being promoted just for who stands in the coffee machine and talks to everyone the longest instead of
Yeah.
actual merit, who's working the hardest, who is the expert in that field. I think there's such deep rooted causes that makes people unhappy, and putting a plaster on it and saying, fine, we'll work fully remote. We'll avoid
Yeah, so
those.
so that's not a good solution, right? It's too black and
Yeah.
white. But I would say that if you're, for example, a manager, or if you are working remotely, there are some extra things that you can do for yourself. If you, for example, if you're working remotely, if you have someone on your team that is working remotely, that it turns out that these people who are working remotely, they need additional meetings to just connect,
Yes.
kind of to ask, okay, but how am I doing really at my job? Do you like me? Are we on a human level? Are we connected? Is there a place for me in your organization if I work remotely? So I think remote teams need a little bit of extra care. And also a person who is working remotely, and I have been working remotely. Most of my therapy clients are remote, so I did have some periods where I felt quite isolated. And what I have found is something that I need to do for myself. Then I need to make or pay extra attention to make sure that I have those little interactions with the shop assistant, with my hairdresser, and then also put extra effort into making sure that in the afternoon I go out and have some social engagements, activities, and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, just even thinking about Jamie and myself as well, working remotely fully, and we've just craved just going outside and commuting somewhere
Yeah.
instead of commuting to the bedroom
Yeah.
and working there.
Yeah, it's not so far away, right? The bedroom. Yeah.
But it sounds crazy because when I think back to the times where I was commuting an hour and 40 minutes, I was like, oh, so it's like this black and white thinking, like you said, like even reducing to 4-day work weeks, they found, I think it was the University of Ghent, found that people were like even more stressed because it's not, you've got 1 day less to work. It's do all of that work in 4 days.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say it's like, I think we're in a moment where we are redesigning how we are supposed to be working, because the companies that are forcing their employees to go back to the office full time, I don't think there's a future in that. I think there needs to be some flexibility. What I can say for myself is that I need some space in how I feel and how I work. I need space to regulate, to self-regulate, because I don't feel like I'm, or maybe nobody is standard, right? There is no norm. Everybody is different. So I think that people need some margin to regulate how often they want to go to the office and how often they want to stay at home and focus. For me, I would say that if I work like 2 days every week from an office or some location where I see people, that's the optimal. Also stimulation from the environment, and I think it also, for me, since the pandemic, I'm not so resilient when it comes to noise. I've gotten used to my quiet apartment.
Exactly. It's just about having autonomy, being treated like an adult. I mean, universities are more flexible than workplaces.
Absolutely, yeah. I think this treated as an adult. I think you're spot on with this remark that managers that I've talked to sometimes have this problem that if if I let my team work remotely, I don't have control over what they are doing. But that's not a problem that you don't have control, because if you hire well, if you onboard well, and if you have a good mission and great values, then you don't need to have control over your people. The only thing you need to do is you need to design how to measure milestones. You need to design how to measure outcomes of people's work, and not whether they do it in the office or not, right? So it's a question. I think it's an additional challenge for management. That's happening.
I had a similar conversation with a manager, actually a CEO of a company. She's just inherited a company from her parents. And she asked me the same question because she wants a workshop as well. How do I know remote workers are doing what they're supposed to do? And I paused because I wanted her to marinate in her own
Yeah.
words. And I think that's such an important thing to think about with the control versus treated like an adult and autonomy. And you're absolutely right with people working remote, feeling isolated, but also, like you said, like you have the comfort of, making your own cup of coffee, not spending money on lunches, working in your leggings and stuff. It's absolutely fine. But that balance needs to be there where I think employees need to call the shots. Like, because some days I am really social and I'm like, oh, it's a Thursday, this is happening at work, there's like a get together. Yeah, I'm in the mood. And other days I have terrible sleep, I have PMS, I'm just not in the mood. I've had such a busy week. I'm like, I don't want to see anyone. Like, I want to work from home. So if a leader or if a company respects that, I'll work there forever. And there's so many remote companies like Deal, for example, Remote, which is a company that are fully remote and have record breaking years. Their profit is crazy and they work from all over the world. They manage to do it. So you don't necessarily have to be 5 days in the office.
Yeah, absolutely. I work with a online therapy provider, and I'm super happy with and we work with Deal, by the way, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Subtle promotion.
Subtle promotion. So I work with Spring Health, and I'm super happy with the way of working because, this is fully remote. Because what I feel is happening is that I get the tools to be more effective. So somebody who's designing IT support, for example, designs it in such a way that I can focus only on my therapy clients and everything else is taken care of. And then if you treat your employees as customers of your business also, that you also need to think about their needs, I think in the long term it will translate to business success. There is, of course, I think what we are observing right now is a change of power dynamic a little bit, especially with the younger generation now entering the market, the job market. I think there is like a change in power dynamics right now. It used to be more hierarchical, and right now it gets a bit more equal, especially when we're talking about professionals and specialists who are not so easily replaceable, right? So if you have people that are working on the same level, more or less, then your question is not how do I control them? Your question is how do I design workflows in a way and workplace relationships in a way that makes it easy for those people to work. I would say that this is the solution. I can contribute from the psychological side. I'm pretty sure that there are also specialists contributing from the IT side,
Yeah.
workflows, stuff like that. Yeah.
It's giving such a optimistic future. The fact that we could be potentially redesigning how we work, where we work, the autonomy. Gen Z's coming in and they're like, bam, kicking down the door. And they're like, we want to be having like a bigger mission at work, right? They really care about sustainability and having a really big impact of what they do. We want flexible hours. We want to, automate things and work on the stuff we're really passionate about and not give AI the things we enjoy. I was also thinking about, it was Henry Ford that created the 9 to 5 for factory workers, right? It was in 1926. It's 100 years ago. We are working the same way as factory workers in the Industrial Revolution were working 100 years ago. It's about time in the digital age with AI automation. I think Mind Valley's event, they talk about workplace wellbeing. The CEO said, I see the future being 3-day work weeks and 4-day weekends because we will automate all the crap. Even as business owners, we don't want to do, but has to be done, like admin, etc. spreadsheets, and then we will focus on what we are really good at, the human element that we enjoy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of that, like everything I'm seeing about the future looks really optimistic. Not 5 days in the office, 4 days, etc.
I would say that we are going in the right direction, because compared to 100 years ago, it's still we are still in the 9 to 5. But compared to 100 years ago, I think our quality of life and general safety of life improved.
Yes.
Right. So we are going in the right direction. But I'm super excited also at the idea of if AI takes over part of the tasks that can be automated, then we will free up some of the human energy, and then we can spend it on leisure. That would be nice. But the temptation, of course, always is that if we free up some energy, then we want to put it to even more working. So I think there is a danger, and I'm very happy that people are resisting this direction and saying, no, maybe we want to have more free time instead of using those extra 2 days for more work. I'm pretty sure that, I'm certain, because I know myself, that I want more free time.
Yes,
Yeah.
we've done a total 360 of this episode where we've gone back to right at the beginning where I
Yeah.
mentioned about if we take well-being seriously, will this impact my career and success?
Absolutely, because, if I'm making decisions right now, what am I putting my energy into? And my well-being is at the top of my priority list, then I will make bloody sure that I am not putting energy into something that is unsustainable and doesn't bring me closer to my perfect life, right? So it's much more sustainable, and it's not sitting on the couch and watching Netflix.
So good. So good. I love how it naturally had like a life,
Yeah.
this podcast episode. It had a beginning, a middle, a messy middle, and an end.
Messy is good.
So you're going to pick your last question. It's going to be left to chance. Most of the times, actually, no, all the time, it's been really surprising how accurate the questions have been compared to the theme and the episode.
The
So
universe is working. What personal or creative project do you want to dive into? So I have 3. I have book writing, creating my own podcasts, and online courses. So these are 3 very creative things that I'm diving into right now. So let me tell you a bit about maybe the book angle, because I think like I have 2 books right now in me. One is a book on 7 pillars of workplace well-being, and this is going to be like a guideline for companies, trainers, to understand how to break down workplace well-being and have those conversations, and explaining also the mechanics of every pillar. And the other book is that I would love to write a book, so I need to find time for it. I would love to write a book about therapy. And how I approach these big topics in therapy, like death of a loved one, and how do you navigate grieving with a client, or what is the role of parents and the mistakes that they made in the therapy process, because parents often get blamed.
they are to blame. I'm joking.
So how do you navigate those challenging questions, or criticizing yourself inside? So I would love to write a book about that, but this is a project that I am waiting to dive into right now. I have other priorities.
If there's an investor watching, please invest in Agnieszka, because she needs to write these 2 books, because I would buy them instantly and I would read them, and you would fix a lot of my problems in my life.
Thank you. I will try to find time. And what would be your personal project if you were to dive into something new?
Yeah, I also have a book. It's my 4th draft. I think like the situation you have, I feel like when we're very creative and humans are very complex. They like different things and they niche down in several different things. I wrote 4 different versions of the same book, Realistic Happiness. And I just didn't know what direction to go in, but now it's like naturally taken form. It's got like a life of its own. Just wish, if I had like the stable income without doing all the other things I'm doing, podcast, workshops, clients, partnerships, etc. I could just really focus, but then maybe not, because that would be the burden, That's the thing the avoidant. What we
Yes.
talked about earlier, that's the thing I'm avoiding because it's such a big monster. But no, I'm already doing the creative thing I love the most, which is this. It's
Oh,
this
lovely.
baby, which is the podcast and talking to people like you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's lovely. I would definitely want to read your book as well. So
Oh, amazing. And you
yeah.
mentioned the other two as the
Podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also thinking about podcasts focusing on workplace well-being and starting that with a friend of mine potentially. And the other one is online courses, because training that requires me to be on site, that's quite a big investment of time, and it requires a lot of logistics around it. So right now I'm also on Teachable. I'm rolling out my workplace well-being courses. The first one is now available, and it was a lot of fun designing it also. So I will be designing the next 6 also, so that I reach my 7 pillars.
I wonder if you're my long lost sister of my twin flame. We have very similar paths in life, and I love that. But Agnieszka, thank you so much for everything you've taught us today. It's been, I'm going to rewatch this episode. I think you're going to change a lot of people's thought patterns, perspectives, and lives with regards to workplace and also avoidance as well. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for hosting. I've been watching your podcast for some time now, and I was really looking forward to being here, because you're such a great interviewer and a great host. So thank you for having me.
Hey, and then maybe I'll go on your podcast in the future.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.